Good morning, welcome to the Culinary Command Post. I'm Tricia Bear, Chef Tricia Bear. I'm going to teach you how to make Blondie Brownies, which is half brownies and half cookies. So the ingredients that we need to make that are the dry ingredients, which is 1 3/4 cups of flour. Now if you can measure your flour, that's 210 grams of flour, and that way it'll turn out better if you have a scale to measure it. We also are going to have 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, then 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and then 3/4 teaspoon of salt. We have vanilla, which is basically 2 teaspoons, 1 egg at room temperature, 1 stick of butter, which is half a cup of melted butter, and then you're going to have your 1 cup of brown sugar, and then whatever mix-ins or filling you want to add. So I have butterscotch chips and also milk chocolate chips that we're going to add in, as well as some pecans. So I basically have half a cup of each of those items. And then I did save about 1/4 cup of the same pecans, milk chocolate, and butterscotch to add on top of the brownies once we get them mixed up. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to mix your brown sugar, which is the 1 cup of brown sugar, with the butter, the melted butter, which is 1 stick or half a cup. All right, so we're going to gently mix that together. Okay, and just use your spatula and be sure to scrape down the sides of the bowl so it's all mixed in. Okay, so that's your brown sugar and your melted butter. So then now we're going to add our 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And if you get a chance to get one of these slides, it's a lot easier to put the ingredients in the bowl. And it's only a couple of dollars. So, and then next we're going to add our egg, which is at room temperature. If you forget to take it out of the fridge fast enough, just put it in a bowl of warm water and it'll come down to room temperature. Okay, so we're going to add our egg to the blondie dough, and we're going to just gently mix it. And if you don't have a stand mixer, this recipe is perfectly fine. If you just want to mix it by hand with a spoon, that's perfectly fine for this recipe. Okay, so now we've mixed up our wet ingredients. All right, so now we're going to mix our dry ingredients in a bowl with a whisk. And it's 1 3/4 cup of flour or 210 grams. If you can get a measuring scale, I highly recommend that, especially when you're measuring flour, because too much flour can make your cookies or your brownies dry. Then we're going to add in 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, spread it around a little, and then also we're going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder, And then we're going to add 3/4 teaspoon of salt. And make sure you spread it around. It's a lot easier to get it mixed up if you got it spread around not in one place. Okay, so now we're going to mix our flour with the baking powder and the baking soda and the salt with the whisk. And I'm mixing it in a bowl before I actually add it to our wet ingredients, which is the butter and the brown sugar and the egg and the vanilla. Okay, so I've got that all mixed together. Now I'm going to add the flour mixture in with the wet ingredients. And you can actually add it all at once on this recipe. Just mix it on low so it doesn't throw flour everywhere. Okay, so now I'm going to do the rest of the mixing with a spatula. And you can really add any kind of chips that you want in. Semi-sweet chocolate chips, cream cheese chips, white chocolate, whatever type of sweet chips that you want. Okay. Just making sure all my flour's mixed into the dough before I add my chips. And you don't want to over mix this recipe because it'll turn out too dry. So just enough to combine the flour and make sure all your dough is mixed in with the flour. Okay, so then now we're going to add I chose butterscotch chips, milk chocolate chips, and pecans. And I didn't use all of them. I just used about a cup, and then I saved some that I'm going to press in on top once we put it in the pan. So you're going to fold in these chips. Make sure you got chips in all parts of the dough. Still some chips on the bottom, so I'm trying to make sure it's incorporated into the blondie dough. Okay, so all the chips is mixed in with the bowl. Now I'm going to use this brownie pan today, and the reason I like this pan is because it already has a cutting device in it, so if you want to make smaller squares of brownies, you can. It does make up to 18 small brownies, but if you want a larger brownies, then it'll be probably about 9 servings. So I'm doing the 18 brownies, and I'm going to lightly spray my pan with this baking powder, the pan with baking powder. Now, before we put this in the pan, I'm going to put some parchment paper on it, and just so it's easier to get out of the pan when it's done, and then we can cut it out of the pan. So I have these prepared parchment sheets, and you want to put it with a hang, like an inch or two hanging over, so when you pull it out, you just pull the sheets. And you can just spray the pan just a little bit to hold the parchment paper in, like that. Okay, so we got our pan ready. And we're going to use the cutting device once it comes out of the oven, and then that's how we're going to cut it into smaller pieces. Okay, so now we're going to put the dough we've already mixed together in this pan. And it all comes right out of the pan. And so now we're going to press it down into the pan so it's all level. I'm going to use this little spatula to actually spread it out. Be sure that you have the sides of your pan lined with the parchment paper too, so the sides don't get stuck. So all you're doing is pressing it down, and you don't want to overmix the dough. Just enough to get it combined. And once I get all the dough level, then I'm going to add the additional pecans, milk chocolate, and butterscotch chips. Takes just a minute to get it all level. Okay, so I have it all level. And now I'm just going to gently press the additional chips on top. And I do have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. The recipe says it takes about 32 to 38 minutes. My oven at home will get it done in 32 minutes. So you want to check it and make sure it's just golden brown on top, and that's how you know it's done. So I'm sprinkling them all evenly on top of the Blondies, and then I'm going to press them into the dough. Okay, I've got them all pressed in, so now I'm going to put them in the oven for about 30 minutes, and then I'm going to check them and make sure they're not too done. But your oven may take anywhere from 30 minutes to 38 minutes on these. All right, so I'm going to put them in the oven. We're going to do it for 30 minutes just to make sure it don't overcook. Okay, so now I'm in the process of taking the Blondies out of the oven. And this one took about 31 minutes. It could take up to 38 minutes depending on your oven. See how it has a nice golden brown tint to it? So that's what you're looking for, and you're going to let them cool completely before you cut them. And we're going to use this cutting device that goes with this pan to cut them so they're nice and even, and there's 18 small pieces of the Blondies. Otherwise, that recipe makes 9 big brownies. And we'll do that once they cool.
I think this is it.
Okay.
I think we got it.
Pull that out, and then I'll finish cutting it with that knife there. I'm going to turn it.
Here comes the moment of truth.
Shell's gonna taste test the blondies.
We're gonna test these. I like the taste. How do you explain it? You have a little hint of brownie, but you can feel the other, and obviously the nuts and
Butterscotch.
chocolate and butterscotch
and milk chocolate.
Yeah. But it's good.
But you can use any chocolate, you can use cranberries, you can use any kind of fruit you want in these.
Yeah, and also every Sunday, 2 o'clock, come to visit us at the Culinary Command Post. And Tricia is on at 2 o'clock every Sunday afternoon on YouTube. And we'll go from there. God bless. Hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you soon again.
Thanks for watching.